In this world, you either lead or you follow. A king doesn't ask for power, he takes it. Leadership isn't handed out like candy. It's earned through fire focus and relentless will. Being dominant isn't about shouting, it's a presence. When you walk into a room, they feel you before you speak. Weak men wait for approval. Kings create their own thrones. You don't need validation. You need results. You're either respected or forgotten. If people don't fear losing you, they don't value you, stop playing small. A lion doesn't negotiate with sheep. Every action you take, every word you say, it must echo authority. Not arrogance, certainty. If you hesitate, they'll sense it. If you doubt if you've already lost, stand firm. Speak sharp. Move fast. Dominate with discipline, not desperation. Build your empire, not excuses. A king has vision. He sees 10 moves ahead, and he knows nobody's coming to save him. You want to lead, then be worth following. Power is taken, not given. This is a truth most people aren't ready to hear. From the moment we're born, the world tries to train us to ask for permission. Permission to speak, to act, to succeed. But kings don't ask. They don't wait. They decide. The woman you want, power isn't a gift wrapped in a bow, handed to the polite or the patient. It's seized by those who are bold enough to claim it, strong enough to hold it, and dangerous enough to defend it. Look around you. The men who rule industries, nations, and empires weren't given their thrones. They had to fight for them. Mentally, physically, strategically. They saw what they wanted and moved with precision and aggression to make it theirs. While the average man was busy doubting himself, apologizing for wanting more, the dominant one was already 3 steps ahead, stacking wins, building leverage, making himself impossible to ignore. That's the difference. One man waits. The other moves. Society teaches weakness as virtue. They humble, stay quiet, wait your turn. But kings don't wait in line. They build their own gates. The problem is most men are addicted to approval. They want someone to validate their dreams, their ambition, their hunger. So they hesitate. They second guess, and that hesitation is the death of power. Because in the real world, when you hesitate, someone else takes what you wanted. Someone more focused, more ruthless, less emotional. Dominance begins with mindset. You must believe you deserve to win, not hope, not wish. Believe. Every action, every word must stem from certainty. Power hates doubt. The woman you want, a man who questions himself, sends signals of weakness. That's when people start testing you, challenging you, trying to pull you down to their level. But when you move with conviction, when your energy says, I own this, they step back, they submit, not because you asked, but because your presence demands it. Power isn't loud. It's silent, subtle, and brutal. The man who truly owns a room doesn't need to prove it. His confidence does the talking. He's not chasing anything. He's selecting. There's a difference between desire and desperation. Most men reek of the latter. You want power. Control your emotions, control your time, control your environment. Set standards so high, weak men can't even understand them. That's how kings operate. Their life is built on discipline and control. Power follows that naturally. Taking power requires risk. You can't dominate from the sidelines. You have to put your skin in the game. That means accepting that failure is part of the process. But unlike weak minds, the dominant men don't break. They adjust. They don't cry about what didn't work. They analyze it, adapt, and strike again. Every setback is a setup for a stronger return. This resilience builds aura, and aura is power. People follow the man who never folds, who never flinches when it gets hard, who stands tall when others fall. The woman you want, you must also understand this. Power is a responsibility. You can't demand it if you haven't built the capacity to hold it. That's why most people never rise to the top. The woman you want, they think wearing a crown is about being seen. It's not. It's about carrying the weight, making decisions others are too scared to make. And woman you want, and living in a state of constant pressure without breaking. If you want to lead, you better be ready to bleed. Because real power doesn't come easy, and it doesn't come cheap. Stop begging for opportunities. Start creating them. Stop waiting for the right time. There is no right time. There is only now and the man who owns it. While you're planning, the king is already building. While you're hoping, he's already moving. That's why power rewards speed, not recklessness, but decisive action. The man who acts forces everyone else to respond. He becomes the center of gravity. The room orbits around him, not the other way around. The truth is, most men will never taste real power because they're too comfortable. They've been sedated by distraction, weakened by comfort, and trained to think that mediocrity is enough. But for the dominant man, comfort is the enemy. He thrives in pressure. He hunts in chaos because he knows that's where the weak fold and where he rises. Power is taken those moments when everyone else backs down and he steps forward. You don't need permission to be great. You don't need approval to rise. You need obsession, focus, the woman you want, and the will to dominate. The throne isn't for the kind-hearted or the lazy. It's for the one who's ready to impose his vision on the world and refuses to accept anything less. Presence speaks louder than words. In a world full of noise, full of empty talk and weak gestures, true dominance doesn't need a microphone. It doesn't scream. It doesn't ask for attention. It simply is. When a real leader walks into a room, the energy shifts, eyes turn, conversations pause. Not because he demanded attention, but because his presence commands it. That's the difference between a king and a clown. One owns the moment. The other performs for it. Your presence is the message before you speak. It's the posture, the eye contact, the silence between words. Weak men hide behind loud voices, behind fake smiles, behind distractions. But a man with real power, he knows that silence is louder than shouting. He stands tall, speaks slow, looks you dead in the eye, and says less because he needs to say less. His value speaks for him, his discipline in how he moves. His confidence is carved into every step he takes. Most men think presence is about size or status or style. It's not. It's about certainty. It's about energy. When you know who you are, what you want, and what you stand for, you don't need to prove anything. You carry yourself differently. You move with intention. You don't chase. You draw things to you. That's the magnetism of presence. It pulls while others push. People feel it in your silence, in your steadiness, in the way you handle pressure without blinking. To build presence, you have to start with self-respect. If you don't take yourself seriously, no one else will. The woman you want, if you walk like a man who doubts himself, talks like a man who needs validation, and acts like a man unsure of his value, then that's exactly how the world treats you. But when you enter a space with purpose, shoulders back, eyes sharp, movements intentional, you send a message, I'm not here to be accepted. I'm here to be remembered. Your presence is shaped by your habits. A man who trains his body, sharpens his mind, and tightens his discipline carries a different weight. He doesn't need to brag about waking up early or grind in silence. You can see it in his frame, in his focus, in the calm way he handles chows. Presence isn't about pretending to be something. It's about becoming something. Something solid, something grounded, something immovable. You don't have to say you're a king when everyone already feels it. Control is a key part of presence. A man who controls his emotions, his reactions, and his time is rare, and rare is respected. When others are emotional, he is composed. When others are distracted, he is present. And when others are searching for approval, he already owns the moment. This kind of control isn't natural. It's built through repetition, through discomfort, through facing chaos and refusing to be moved by it. That's how presence is forged, under pressure, not in comfort. Another layer to presence is detachment. The dominant man doesn't cling to outcomes, people, or opinions. He knows what he brings to the table. He's not desperate to convince or convert. He doesn't over-explain or over-apologize. His power is internal. When you remove neatness, you replace it with magnetism. That's why kings don't chase. They attract, not because they're cold, but because they know their value. The more grounded you are in yourself, the more presence you have in the world. Most men kill their own presence by trying too hard. They crack jokes to be liked, overtalk to be heard, or flex to be seen. But trying to prove power is proof you don't have it. Presence comes from stillness, from restraint, from saying what needs to be said and no more. It comes from letting your actions, the woman you want, your discipline, and your aura do the heavy lifting. Real leaders know that overexposure weakens impact. They move in silence and let their results speak. Presence is also felt in tension. The woman you want. You don't always need to fill silence with words. You don't always need to explain your decisions. Let people feel the weight of your stillness. Let them sit in the silence and wonder what you're thinking. That's leverage. And the man who understands this becomes unpredictable, unshakable, and unforgettable. That's presence in its purest form. When people feel you even when you say nothing, your presence is your signature. It enters the room before your words do. It lingers after you leave. It's what separates the man who leads from the man who follows. Not noise, not flash, not desperation, but energy, certainty, and control. That's how a king moves. That's how dominance is felt without being spoken. Never seek validation. Seek respect. Validation is the drug of the weak. It's what men crave when they don't know who they are. They scroll endlessly, chasing likes, approval, fake praise. They post, pose, and perform for people who don't matter, who wouldn't lift a finger if they vanished tomorrow. That's the disease of modern man, needing to be seen to feel significant. But a man who seeks respect doesn't chase attention. He commands it by being undeniable. Respect isn't given freely. It's earned in silence, built through action, and proven over time. Validation fades, but respect sticks. When you chase validation, you lower your standards to please people. You filter your words, dilute your vision, and compromise your power. You become predictable, soft, agreeable. Respect demands the opposite. It demands that you stand firm in your truth, even if the world resists it. A respected man doesn't care if you like him. He cares if you hear him, if you feel him, if you remember him. The weak men are obsessed with being liked. They fear rejection, so they water themselves down. They trade their authenticity for acceptance. The woman not realizing that the price of validation is self-respect, they become yes men, clowns in a world that rewards wolves. You'll never dominate anything if you're still trying to be liked by everyone. Kings don't bend to be accepted. They rise so high that acceptance becomes irrelevant. When you're undeniable, they'll respect you even if they hate you. You must understand the difference between noise and impact. Validation is noise. It's cheap, fast, and meaningless. It comes from people clapping for something they don't even understand. But respect is impact. It's earned when your results speak louder than your words. It's built when you show up consistently, perform ruthlessly, and carry yourself with integrity. You don't need to explain yourself when your life is proof. That's what makes a man respected: his standards, his discipline, and his refusal to compromise. The woman you want. Most men collapse under pressure because they're too emotionally attached to how others perceive them. They won't take risks because they fear judgment. They won't speak boldly because they fear backlash. But leadership demands edge. It demands sharpness. You cannot inspire fear or admiration if you're still chasing applause. The man who's respected is the one who doesn't care if you misunderstand him, because he knows that time, success, and results will do the explaining. He lives in alignment, not performance. Respect is built in the shadows when no one's watching. It's forged in the early mornings, in the late nights, in the grind nobody sees. Validation looks good on paper. The woman you want, respect shows up in how people treat you when your back is turned. When people talk about you in rooms you're not in, that's respect. When they hesitate before challenging you, that's respect. When your name carries weight without you needing to speak it, that's the result of years of building value, not begging for attention. To seek respect, you have to lead yourself first. The world doesn't respect men who can't control their impulses, who fold under pressure. The woman you want, who need constant reassurance to move forward. The respected man is the one who walks alone if needed, who takes the hard path without crying about it. The woman who holds the line when it would be easier to compromise. That's the kind of strength people remember. That's the kind of presence that makes people lean in when you speak. The woman you want. The moment you stop seeking validation is the moment you start becoming powerful. You stop explaining yourself. You stop waiting for permission. You stop adjusting your tone to keep others comfortable. And you start moving like a man with purpose, like a man on a mission. You say what you mean. You do what you say, the woman you want. And the world begins to notice, not because you asked it to, but because it can't ignore you. People respect results. People respect consistency. The woman you want, people respect men who set standards and never break them. You don't need to prove anything to anyone when you've already proven it to yourself. That's the core. That's where everything begins. Self-respect is the seed, and from it grows the respect of others. Stop living for the crowd and start living for the legacy. Your life isn't a performance. It's a mission. And only men who walk that mission with fire in their chest will ever be truly respected. Lead with certainty, not ego. Certainty is silent power. It's the invisible force behind every move that lands, every word that hits, every decision that shifts the room. Most men confuse ego with strength. They think shouting louder makes them heard. They believe flexing harder makes them seen. But ego is noise. Certainty is presence. It doesn't need to compete. It knows when you operate with certainty, people follow, not because they're told to, but because they feel safer under your leadership. Ego reacts. Certainty responds. The man ruled by ego is emotional, fragile, and easily provoked. He tries to dominate by force, but force without control is weakness. He needs to win every argument, be the loudest in every room, get the last word in every debate. But the man who leads with certainty doesn't need any of that. He doesn't flinch when challenged. The woman you want, he doesn't get rattled by doubt. He trusts himself, not because he's perfect, but because he's prepared, because he knows his path, and nothing can shake him from it. Leadership is about guidance, not attention. The ego-driven man wants to be seen as the leader. The man with certainty is the leader, whether he's in the spotlight or the shadows. He doesn't care who gets credit. He doesn't chase praise. He focuses on outcomes, direction, and impact. When a storm hits, people don't look to the loudest voice. The woman, they look to the most composed, the one who doesn't panic, the one who already has a plan. That's what certainty does. It builds trust before words are even spoken. Certainty comes from clarity. You must know who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going. When you lack direction, ego fills the void. You start pretending. You start acting. You start building an image to distract from the fact that you're lost. But certainty requires no costume. It's rooted in purpose, and that purpose gives you power. When you lead with that kind of clarity, your energy becomes contagious. You give others permission to level up just by existing at your frequency. Ego seeks control out of insecurity. Certainty holds control through discipline. A man with ego micromanages, commands, and tries to dominate others to feed his own weakness. But a man with certainty empowers those around him. He doesn't need to suppress anyone else to feel strong. He creates space for others to grow while remaining unshakable in his own authority. That's real leadership, being strong enough to lead without needing to diminish. The path to certainty is brutal. It's built through trial, failure, and relentless self-reflection. You have to know your demons. You have to face your flaws. The man who never confronts himself becomes a slave to his ego. But the man who embraces discomfort, who leans into growth, the woman you want, who faces his own darkness, that's the man who rises with certainty, because nothing external can shake the man who's already conquered himself. The woman you want, his confidence isn't manufactured, it's earned in the fire. You don't need to talk about being in control when you actually are. You don't need to explain why you deserve to lead when your life is the evidence. Ego is insecure. Certainty is grounded. The more you know, the less you need to prove. The woman you've built, the quieter your voice becomes, because you understand that real leadership doesn't shout. It guides. It moves. It creates results without asking for applause. The difference between ego and certainty is the difference between temporary power and lasting influence. Ego burns fast. It looks good on the surface, but collapses under pressure. Certainty builds empires because it doesn't need to be rushed. It moves with patience, precision, and intent. It plays the long game, the woman you want, and that's why men who lead with certainty are always ahead, even if they don't look like it at first. They're not choosing. When you carry certainty, your presence becomes a strategy. You speak less, but everything you say matters. You move slower, but every step is calculated. You don't show off. You show up. That's what people follow. Not the lot, the flashiest, but the most grounded, the one who can weather storms, make decisions under fire, and stay consistent when everyone else is crumbling. That's the weight and the reward of leading with certainty. Build value, don't beg for attention. In a world full of people screaming to be noticed, the man who builds value is silent, focused, and unstoppable. Most men today are addicted to validation. They chase clout, likes, and cheap applause, thinking it will bring them power. But the truth is, attention without substance is nothing. It fades. It burns out. You might trend for a minute, but if there's no weight behind your name, they forget you the second something louder shows up. Attention is free to get and easy to lose. Value is what stays when the noise dies down. A man of value doesn't need to chase anyone. He attracts opportunities, people, and power because he is the source. He spent hours sharpening his craft, refining his discipline, building something that can't be ignored. He's not flashy, but his results make noise. He doesn't have to tell people he's winning. They see it. That's the game. Build so much value they can't overlook you. Create so much impact you never need to introduce yourself. The problem is, most men want recognition before results. They want the spotlight before they've earned it. They think exposure equals influence. But kings don't beg to be seen. They build kingdoms so real the world has no choice but to look. Every second you spend trying to be noticed is a second you're not building. Every post, every flex, every desperate attempt for attention. It all takes energy away from mastery. And in the end, mastery is the only thing that holds weight when you focus on building value. Your name becomes currency. People mention you in rooms you haven't entered. Your reputation grows without effort because it's based on truth, not performance. You no longer have to ask for a seat at the table. You are the table. And the reason is simple. You bring something people need. Whether it's skill, strategy, insight, or execution, your value makes you indispensable. That's what separates the dominant from the average. One is begging for approval. The other is building something that eliminates competition. Building value starts with knowing your lane. You don't need to be everything to everyone. You need to go all in on what you do best and become untouchable at it. That level of focus is rare. Most men are scattered. They try a little of this, a little of that, hoping something hits. But kings don't dabble. They dominate. They find what works, and they commit with obsession. That obsession creates excellence. And excellence creates leverage. You have to be ruthless with your time. You can't scroll like everyone else, party like everyone else, complain like everyone else, and expect to rise above them. The man who builds value is disciplined beyond what's comfortable. He trains when he's tired. He studies when others are sleeping. He builds systems while others chase trends. His habits are boring to the average man, but that's why his life is anything but average. He trades comfort for power, short-term pleasure for long-term position. The truth is, when you really build value, you don't have to sell yourself. People sell you to others. Your results speak so loud you don't need to. That's the difference. People trust a man who delivers, who finishes what he starts, who builds with precision and intention. There's power in reliability. There's power in showing up day after day, stacking wins, becoming a pillar in a world full of flakes and talkers. While others compete to be noticed, you become the standard. You must also understand that value isn't just what you know. It's how you execute. Ideas are everywhere. Execution is rare. Value is built through doing, not dreaming. The man who gets it done is worth more than 1,000 who just talk about it. Every result you create is a brick in your empire. Every win you earn is proof you're different. People can't argue with results. They can't deny consistency. And when they see what you've built, they respect it, even if they never say it out loud. So stop begging to be seen. Stop asking for validation. Start building something they can't ignore. Invest in your skill, your discipline, your character. Be so good they have to talk about you. Not because you beg them to, but because your value leaves them no choice. That's how kings move: quietly, relentlessly, with purpose, with vision. Always building, always rising, never needing to be loud because their results do all the talking. Power respects power. Weakness attracts vultures. That's the law of the jungle, the rule of the real world, the truth that no one wants to admit because it exposes the fragile. In a world obsessed with softness, inclusion, and fake kindness, the truth is simple. Strength is the ultimate currency. Not just physical strength, but mental, emotional, spiritual. The man who walks with power, who carries himself like he answers to no one but his mission, is the man who commands respect without asking for it. Because power doesn't beg. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't need permission to exist. The reality is, predators never hunt other predators. They hunt the weak. They hunt the desperate. They look for the ones who avoid eye contact, who flinch under pressure, who give their energy away to be accepted. The second you show softness without control, you invite the world to test you. Not because people are evil, but because that's nature. People instinctively check for weakness. They challenge authority that seems uncertain. But when you move with conviction, when your energy screams, "Don't play with me," the tests stop. The games end. Power recognizes its own reflection and knows when to stand down. You have to stop expecting fairness in a world built on competition. The man who waits for life to treat him fairly is the same man who gets devoured by those who've accepted the game for what it is. Power respects boundaries. Weakness invites invasion. The second you hesitate, someone else takes the shot. The second you doubt, someone more certain takes your place. This is why dominance isn't about shouting or flexing. It's about eliminating weakness inside and out, so the world has nothing to exploit. Everything about you either commands power or bleeds it. The way you walk, the tone of your voice, your reaction to disrespect, your ability to sit in silence and not flinch, all of it is communication. And the world is listening. If you're uncertain, they feel it. If you're desperate, they sense it. If you lack control, they exploit it. But when you're grounded, composed, and alert, you send a signal: I'm not to be tested. I don't chase. I choose. This is why you must fortify yourself daily. Weak men wait to be tested before they start preparing. Strong men train when no one's watching. They sharpen their minds through discipline. They master their emotions so they don't get manipulated. They build their bodies as armor, not vanity. And they move through life with a strategy, never just reacting, always calculating. That's what makes them untouchable. Not because they're invincible, but because they've removed the cracks where weakness leaks out. People say power corrupts, but that's only true for the weak. Real power exposes what's already there. A man who was never built for power uses it to inflate his ego, but a man who's already conquered himself uses it to build, to lead, to elevate those around him. He doesn't need to dominate people. He dominates the mission. He leads not from a place of insecurity, but from deep internal order. And because of that, even his enemies respect him. Because power, real power, is impossible to fake. You want to be respected. Become unshakable. You want to lead. Become undeniable. You want to rise. Kill the weakness. Power isn't just about being feared. It's about being felt. It's about walking into a room and shifting the energy without saying a word. It's about being the man they watch, even when you're not trying to be seen. That's the difference between the average and the elite. One is constantly performing. The other simply is, this is why every day you have to ask yourself, am I building power or leaking it? Are my actions creating strength or giving it away? Are my habits turning me into a weapon or softening me into prey? There's no in between. You're either rising or fading. Power respects power. Weakness attracts vultures. And every day is a choice, not once, but in every word, every decision, every reaction. The more you choose strength, the more the world responds with respect, not resistance. You can't fake dominance. You can't pretend to be powerful. The second the pressure hits, the truth shows. That's why you train. That's why you prepare. That's why you build yourself into something that doesn't flinch, doesn't fold, doesn't chase. Power is the byproduct of alignment, when your words, your mind, your actions, and your mission all move as one. That's when the world stops testing you. Because once you become power, everything else either steps up or steps aside